To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Finance Secretary actually referred to this budget as a neutral one. And you yourself just said that there are a lot of assumptions built in that things will actually kickstart. Again, a question that's been asked very often is that they've allocated or suggested certain budgetary spending, but will they actually follow through, since they've again assumed that the economy will recover, that growth will be intact, and so forth. What do you feel are the chances? Where do you feel we are in the recovery path?
Look, I think the recovery has been so-so. It's not been, we had a very sharp decline in 2020, which was the highest in the world. I mean, the most severely impacted country in the world. I think people shouldn't forget that. And then we've recovered. So the level of GDP is barely come back to pre-pandemic levels. So it's not, if you look at the index of industrial production, etc., we're barely come back. And of course, the composition of that recovery has been quite, skewed. I think it's fair to say that people at the bottom half have suffered more. And, all this talk about the K-shaped recovery, there's some truth to that. So I think, we're not in by any means bouncing back to a fantastic trajectory of growth. So I think we have to be cautious. Yes, there are some bright spots. I think exports are doing well. I think taxes have done well last year. But overall, the economy is still fairly weak. Labor markets especially are very weak. The SME sector is actually quite weak because, remember, it's been hit by a series of shocks. So I think one should be fairly modest about where the Indian economy stands today in the aftermath. And remember, the last point I would make is something that I've been emphasizing a lot, that the Indian economy was very weak even going into the pandemic. So it's not as if, we had gangbuster, we did very well before, and this is just a kind of temporary aberration, and we're going to bounce back to that. So I think that's why we have to be fairly cautious and fairly watchful and plan accordingly.
I'm going to frame this on a slightly lighter note, Dr. Subramanian, but especially since you talked about the state of the economy pre-pandemic. The socialists are saying the government is not socialist enough. The capitalists are saying they're not capitalist enough. The middleman is really stuck nowhere in the middle. So when you talk about the budget last year and this year progressively getting better, and you can clearly see a plan going forward, what would you like to see more of? Or which direction do you see the financial planning going in?
See, look, I think let's be clear. Budgets, let's be clear about what budgets do and don't do. I think budgets are not the vehicle for a long-term economic growth. And we're going to come to that. I think where I think the budget has seriously fallen short is in the long run, but then that's not a fault of the budget per se, because we have to, other things have to go right and we're going to come to that. Although I do think the budget has made things worse on the long run economic growth front. So budgets per se are not meant to, they can manage turbulence, they create balance and stability, and they're meant to create the conditions for overall growth to take place. You avoid crisis, you avoid, when things go bad, you want some counter-cyclical buffers, as happened during COVID. So I think we should be clear about, not both expecting too much from budgets, but also that, do budgets create the conditions for other things, the private sector to do well in the economy. So it's from that perspective I feel that the budget has fallen seriously short, and let me explain that. I think on the one hand, I think the move to increasing capex, I think is a very welcome step. I think what people should realize is that the capex increase in the budget is partly compensating for capex declines in the rest of the public sector. So to some extent, it's almost offsetting what's the declines elsewhere. And I think, we need to build roads, bridges, all of that. India is still way. But I think long run growth, as I've said repeatedly, including Josh Feldman and I in a recent foreign affairs piece have said, long run growth is going to come from private investment and exports. And here, I think the government has to, is maybe going even backwards. The budget, for example, one of the less desirable aspects is, it's raised tariffs once again. So basically, the government is doubling down on Atmanirbharta as a long-term growth strategy. I think many of us, including me, have serious doubts about that.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.